Hello everyone, and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. We're taking our second look at the Entente Coalition today, moving on from reservists to line infantry, and your line infantry are less expendable than reservists. I think, I'm not entirely sure if I would take both of them at the same time, but there might be a case for that depending on if you're doing a deck specialization, or if you're doing a team game versus a 1v1. Before we get into the unit cards themselves for Mostrelchi and Mechanizovana, Gattsu, would you be able to clear up sort of, would you want to take both reservists and line? Is there a case for it, or not so much?
The thing is how we are aiming at it. If you're playing a team game, you're usually just better off with záložníci, but Mechanizovaná pešádia itself, compared to Motostřelci, is a special card because you always take it for the BVP in Entente deck. It's almost mandatory. So if you are talking about infantry fire support, you need Mechanizovaná in all decks, but you don't need as lines. I would refer to them as those with 5-point transport that are expendable. So you don't need those who are expendable with 2 cards, but usually just 1, which is mandatory. But if you're playing a mech deck, you can perfectly go with card of záložníci, for example, card of Motostřelci in 5-pointer upvet, and then Mechanizovaná in BVP.
Gotcha. Well, that is a lot of information. Let's take some of that apart here just a bit, because I think most people will be looking at those 5-point boxes, but Yugoslavia has some interesting other vehicles. You mentioned the BVP M80A. I was going to ask you about both that unit and the OAT M60PB. What are sort of the usage cases for these vehicles?
BVP is very notorious for being one of the strongest units in the game because of its point cost, and it's very reliable at killing infantry and light vehicles, and most notably also it's a very good AA piece. If any helicopter gets close to it, especially when it's upvet, it's just gonna be shredded. So it's almost like a mandatory card for Entente. And OTM 60PB is also a very good unit, but it needs to be quote-unquote microed well, because it's very vulnerable as it has only 1 front armor. But when it's in the backline and it's providing fire support, it's an excellent vehicle that can also, because it's heat, chip from the tanks and kill vehicles quite efficiently.
It reminds me quite a lot of almost the Israeli Zelda, which I know they have some different values there, but the 3-gun sort of combo here with the Browning with the M53, and then the recoilless rifle is very unique, but it can target, I think, both vehicles with the AP power of 10, as well as infantry with HE power of 2. Do you really use this thing a lot, or I don't know, what are we doing with it?
You can definitely use it in unspec, also in especially in a mech deck with different combo, with combo of Proletari or Proletari 90.
Gotcha.
It's a little bit less expensive than BVP transport, but it's still very efficient. But you cannot really do the same thing with it as with Zelda, because it's not armored at all, so it's not as survivable and it's not as expendable.
Gotcha. So it's not the same sort of just throw it into the woods, see what happens type unit.
Yes, you need you cannot definitely use it as a vanguard unit. You need the Mechanizovaná to engage first, and then you come in with the PB and do the burst damage and back away again.
Gotcha. So to boil all of this down to, you're making a general deck for Entente, and you're looking for your line infantry, the infantry and the vehicle. What card do you take, up or down vetted?
For unspec deck in a ranked, I would possibly take card of záložníci and then card of Mechanizovaná in BVP.
Fair enough. Well, that makes it pretty plain and simple. I know oftentimes I struggle with line infantry choices, particularly early on getting used to a faction because there's just so many of them. But I really think, having used the BVP quite a bit recently, it is just so crazy good for fire support. It's really, try it out. I think you'll like it quite a bit, and I hope you guys found this informative. We'll have another unit comparison for you here tomorrow.